All right, let's catch a little of Yevon versus Vid. This is the fourth game they've played. I've quickly run the others through the solver. It looks like Vid has had some advantage in these games. Um, some positions where he was pressing but not able to get there, and other games that were more balanced on the way. Um, Yevon has really liked using the 4737, and these vertical and horizontal 7/7s have really interesting use on this set, right? He can immediately, if he wants to, slide in 2 or 8 and just be safe for the whole game. Um, Also, we see Yevon has used some of the Mystic Quest cards, which provide weaker in one sense, but different number variations than are normally available. I think I've been kind of learning a bit about the set as we have gone through the previous games I've recorded on, the Delial vs. Midas set. And my first instinct was kind of everyone playing the Behemoth Twins, that's going to favor first turn at the end because those are so likely to be cards you can play off for sames and pluses. But that was not really a fully thought out thing. I think second turn has to be advantaged. I think same plus combo is just a second turn favored set in general. Um, and I don't think there's enough going on here to stop that being the case. I think that Piggy was so good playing this kind of set with first turn with Golagros and 5 as his starter was a testament to how well put together that hand was and how well he played it. All right, looking at hands a bit, Yevon continues the Behemoth Twin pairing, and Vid has not touched it at all. Vid has gone off that kind of path and looked more to use these 5/7/5/4s or 4/5/7/5s in whichever configuration, and 7/6/5/3s. Actually, I'll bring up let's see what they've used in previous games, as it's interesting to see kind of what the standard becomes. So Vid has used 7/6/5/3s and 5/7/5/4s, while Yevon has used, generally speaking, Yevon has been the first, I think the first, no, not the first one, but the one of the ones players to use the strategy, because there's a maximum of 4/7s in your hand and a maximum of 2/7/6s. And Yevon has really so far been championing the use 1/7/7 and 2/7/6s. A lot of people, like as you can see with Vid's hand, is 2/7/6s and 2/7/5s. Um, no one has gone 2/7/7s and then no other sevens in the hand yet, but there's some choices here. All right, I should be putting the game in. Vid has had first turn in every game. Let's see, 5/6/5/6/5, 5/6/5/6/8. All right, let's think a little about what's going on. The 6/7/6/3s seem like they play much better off these kind of dangling sixes, right? These sixes facing out towards the squares where action will happen, than the 5/7/5/4s do. First of all, because they can take fives, and the fives are not set up to be able to take sixes. And actually, I think this move's really, like, just intuitively quite strong. Because Vid has cards that are monodirectional to corners in a sense, right? If you just look at how many, like, what can a 4 or a 5 take in Yevon's hand? Each of the cards in Yevon's hand are weak one way to a 4, and one of them is weak two ways to a 5. But in general, 4s and 5s are not flipping all that much, right? Unless they're set up. And they're not playing that well to take the many up down sixes off these sixes to the side, right? There's nothing that sweeps sixes by using those sixes. So this seems to me like it could very easily be a dangerous situation because suddenly the game is up down. Also, using 4/7/3/7 for Yevon may have been even stronger, but maybe not, because the fives up and down are much easier to sweep playing off the sixes, and these are harder. So if you're Vid, your 3/5/7/6 and your 7/6/3/5 do dominate the up and down in the sense that they are each guaranteed one capture. Given that the game's going to be up-down, I think the instinct here should thus be to use one of the 5-7-5-4s. Find a way to use one of them. Either one of them can be used to create a kind of big setup with the other. Um, Specifically 5-7-5-4 in 1 or 5-4-5-7 in 3. And neither of those are shared by Yevon. At least the capture in 2 is not shared. And whether you go in 1 or 3, you will control 7 and 9, right? There's nothing safe there. And because Yevon doesn't have 2, if he goes, say, 7 and you have to go in 4 to capture, he can't then combo through 2 to flip everything. So I think there is a pretty reasonable case for 1 or 3. I haven't differentiated which one makes more sense to me. I think it's still kind of uncomfortable, right? You want something where, for instance, say you go 5-7-5-4 and 1, and Yevon goes something. Well, then you've given up your capture in 7, right? Either use of your 5-7-5-4 or 5-4-5-7 gives up your way of attacking their card, and it becomes easier for them to lock in. So say you go 5-7-5-4 and 1. That instinctively draws me for Yevon to go in 9, right? Because there's no capture in 7, so if you block 9, the card in 8 is safe. And if you play 6-3, 6-5, and 9, sure, Vid is a capture with 3-5-7-6, but that is really well met by 6-3, 6-7, and 3, which is now safe because 5-7-5-4 is out of Vid's hand. And the same thing will happen in the opposite configuration if you use 5-4-5-7. So I think you are kind of driven to do something peculiar. And what Vid has done is he has blocked 4 kind of in advance of going 1. This is a very interesting move. Right, the sequence that he's going for is pretty clear. Vid plays something in 7, because 7 is the most valuable square on the board. Note that Yevon can't really play in 1. Vid has that really well controlled. Yevon only has 7 and 3s facing to the right, and any of those are comboed, or potentially comboed, by 5-4-5-7. So Yevon's natural move is to go in 7. Vid goes 5-7-5-4-1. And his 7-6-3-5 is not so good, but his 5-4-5-7 is pretty good. That does face the action well. And if Yevon goes in 7 in a way that doesn't flip 4, right? If he uses any card other than 6-7-6-3, I guess Vid never really wants to use 7-6-3-5 in 1. Vid doesn't actually have to occupy 1 immediately. So I could also see Yevon going in 7, and Vid's point being he's going to go in 3 with 7-6-3-5 and try to keep the better endgame sweepers. I don't really believe in that idea. I think this was very dangerous for Vid, and I'm not sure he's found a way out, but it's an interesting idea. The line that strikes me as problematic is something like 6-3, 6-5, and 7. 5-7-5-4 in 1. He has picked up 6-3, 6-5, so we may be seeing this. Yeah, we see 6-3, 6-5. And if 5-7-5-4 in 1, Yevon can go safely in 9. And as long as he keeps 6-3, 6-7 in his hand, it's just so hard for Vid to take those 6s up down, right? So if Vid goes like 7-6-3-5-2 there, Yevon can go 6-3, 6-7, and 6, and there won't be a capture back, and that will flip 5. So can we find a tie here? I think the 6s are just really tough for us. Seven, 6-3-5-3 I do not think works. I think that loses to, for instance, 6-3, 6-7, and 6. when if you go, no, am I counting wrong? Because it's currently 5-5. That will make it 7-3. I think I'm counting wrong there. I think that should lose. He probably loses to 9. Probably loses to, say, 6-3, 6-7, and 9. Because if you go in 6, yeah, they just go 2. Yeah. I'm not seeing things clearly today. That's okay. It's a tough rule set. Um, but I think this is really difficult. Um, you could play 5-4, 5-7, and 3, maybe. Right? With 7-6-3-5, you're guaranteed to then go even on the right, but you have the problem of 6-7-6-3 lands in 1, and you lose on the top left. You do okay on the bottom right, but you lose on the top left. Huh. Yeah. I think the problem in a lot of lines that go for the Q is that basically you never control 6-3-6-7 or 4-7-3-7 and 2. And also, if you want to control 1, you have to hold on to 5-4-5-7, and that controls 1 from 2, but it does very little in 1. I think Yevon has won this. These two played 2 interesting open games in TTAC. Again, I think Vid was pressing in the prior games. I think he was quite close to winning. But I think this one I'm recording is... I just don't see a path here. I think Yevon making the game up-down with that first move, it just turned out that the 5-7-5-4s were so mono-directional, and you just need some double captures somewhere. And they have played well in other games, but they did not line up well here. And the 3-5-7-6, the problem was each card did some unique thing. You needed the 3-5-7-6 to control 7 and 9. You needed the 5-4-5-7 to have attacks in 7 and 9. You needed 7-6-3-5 so that their 6s facing down didn't kill you. And as soon as any card was out of Vid's hand, none of the cards could perform multiple duties, right? None of the cards could take on a secondary needed role. And each of them was really only kind of doing one thing. And so you could say the 5-7-5-4 does multiple things. It both threatens 7 and you can do a setup with it in 1. But as soon as you do the setup with it in 1, you've lost 7, right? And so you really do have a position where the cards all feel like they get in each other's way. And one of the reasons the 6-7-6-3s I think have been so powerful is they don't do that, right? The 6-7-6-3s are maybe they'll all walk into combos, but they're not going to be cards that... I missed a move in my write-up. I missed the very interesting move of 3-5-7-6-4. They're not going to have that kind of clumsy effect. Yeah. And if we think about the 3-5-7-6-4 move, I think it was an interesting idea pairing 1 and 7. But the problem was you were left with 7-6-3-5 in the hand doing nothing. And you couldn't have used 7-6-3-5 and 4 with the same idea because you don't have the recapture in 1. Just all very uncomfortable. I'm not at all sure what should have been done here. The problem with this line, as I evaluate it anyway, is that A, you've lost your threat in 9, but B, 6-7-6-3 just lands safely in 1. Right? And then the other 6-7-6-3 can land safely in 6. I guess the idea is to meet 1 with 9 when 5-7-5-4 is both squares. But Yevon doesn't need to flip anything extra. So Yevon can play. So if like 1 is met by 7-6-3-5 and 9, Yevon can play 4-7-3-7 and 2. And there's not the combo. So nice win by Yevon here. And having come back from a series, I thought he was generally in dangerous situations. Yevon on a absolute tear in tournaments of recent. He does play it, and I think that's it. I will say, I think there are some series that the results can be a little misleading. If a rule set has, I'm reminded of Turds Vialva in Carver, which is not to say like Turds didn't deserve to win, but Vialva was incredibly close to winning one of the early games. And I think I would have lost that game if I was in Turds' shoes. Turds found a great defense, but Turds got first turn every one of those games, and so it was a 4-game match, and one player would first turn every game. And I'm not sure that rule set was first or second turn favored. I don't know. But if a rule set is first or second turn favored, and someone just gets first or second turn every game, right? It may be that like over a 100-game series where each player, I did not consider this move, but I think yeah, this is because we're just trying to lose 9-1, which is classy. I respect that. But I think you can have you could imagine a 100-game series where, say, first turn has a huge advantage, and say like neither player will ever lose with first turn. It's a really big advantage, just making it simple. And one player would win, say, 30 times with first turn and tie 20, and the other player would win 10 times with first turn and tie 40. Obviously, the player who would win 30 times, their 50 first turns, they would win 60% of them. They're the better player. But if they get second turn every game, they're going to lose the series, right? Second turn on that never wins. Similarly here, I think actually Vid did a really nice job of creating chances, given that first turn I think is quite difficult to handle. All right, Yevon does not go for the 9-1. You got to take the 9-1. 9-1s are fun. He goes 4-7-3-7 and 2. Vid goes 7-6-3-5 and 6, and Yevon goes 6-3-6-7 remaining for a 6-4 win for Yevon, and he will advance to the quarterfinals. Who's he playing in the quarterfinals? Presumably we don't know yet. The only player to have advanced so far is one Tezuka before this, but that doesn't mean we can't speculate. It is Tezuka. All right, so that's fun. That's the 2 semifinalists of TTAC meeting in the quarterfinals. So this, in fact, was the one matchup one where we do know what's coming next. Let's talk a tiny bit about the other matchups that have happened. I think Seto Turrets have played 2 games. To my eyes, they looked slightly Seto favored from a quick scan, but that's obviously a huge battle of the heavyweights, and I'm rooting for Turds, as I usually do. Though I would also be very happy to see Seto make a deep run or win a tournament. I think I would really like at some point Seto to win a tournament in the return, because he's a tremendous player, and it would be nice to have the record of that. He's one of the big 4. Then we have Sergio versus Crescent. I'm quite excited to see what Sergio does after having seen his round 1. I thought he played great there. Crescent's round was a lot messier. In general, like, Crescent should probably be considered the favorite, but I really liked what Sergio did, and I'm really excited to see what he does this round, because I thought he played a great first round game, and there's a video about that called Rise of the Center Starter. Tezuka beat Blizzard in an interesting match. I thought Blizzard actually handled the openings well. Not actually, but like Blizzard handled the openings well, and then he got over ambitious in a complicated position where he should be better, but he tried for too much and ended up losing. Uh, Vid Yevon, we just saw the fourth game of. I think the first three games were interesting looking, but ooh, Yevon, you done blown it. Because he could have won this 9-1, and he won his first round 9-1. He could be on two 9-1s entering the quarterfinals. Oh, what a waste. All right. Then we have Delial versus Midas, and we've recorded and should have put up 3 games of that. I think that's been a spectacular match. I think the games have been so complicated. Um, both sides making moves that I didn't expect, but in general were strong. For instance, I thought Midas was going to win game 3, and Delial made a move, and the order went 8-7-3. Deli made a move in 3, and I thought before Deli's move he was going to lose the game. Now the solver says his move was losing, but I mean in practice the win against it was utterly impossible to find. Uh, so it was one of those moves where like he makes a technically losing move, but I think that's the move that saves the game, right? I think that is in practice an excellent move, and I would have played a more interactive move, which would have been a lot easier to beat. So I think that's been a really exciting match. I think Delhi had pressure in the first 2 games, and Midas handled it well. And Midas had pressure in the third game, and Delhi handled it well. And it's been a really good match. In general, I've said this a lot in the past, but I haven't said it recently. Everyone under significant pressure, like, folds after a few times of it. A major goal is to never be under significant pressure or to try to minimize how often you are. But like there's so many positions that aren't lost yet, but if it doesn't click with you, it will immediately be lost. And no one is going to have everything click with them. So, you put someone in a few different situations where everything has to click right for them to survive, and they're going to lose one of them. And maybe the first match wasn't significant pressure, the first game, but I think Midas ended up under real pressure in game 2, and Delhi ended up under real pressure in game 3. And game 1, some care was required as well, though I think that was firmly in the should be a tie range. But we've seen good defenses from both players, professional, like strong defenses from both players, and I'm excited to keep going on that one. DJ Cliffy is also exciting. Cliffy, of course, semifinaled his first tournament and has one of the best new players starting out tournament records we've seen. And DJ, I'm gonna record a video soon. If you look at who DJ has lost to in tournaments in the return, you quickly conclude DJ is just one good result away from being one of the top players. Um, he's basically only lost to top people, and he's just very reliably beaten everyone else. And so that has led to 1 semifinals and some early exits. But it's basically when does he come up against, Seto or someone, right? And that's when he goes out of the tournament. So I think he's probably going to win this round. And I think if he can pick up a win against a top player, then he's going to very deservingly be regularly going quite deep. And so I think he will win this, and I'm excited to see him play against Delial or Midas. I think he hasn't quite gotten over that level where he can start beating those players, but I think he's pretty close. And yeah, I picked Kaus over him, but I kind of wish I had gone with DJ there because I have quite a lot of faith in him as a player. That's the bracket, and that was, I think, interesting game. This certainly counts as an upset, but not a ridiculous one. I think first turn's tough though. I think that's one of the lessons, and I think another lesson is it's really hard to get like you don't think of 7-6-3-5 or 5-4-5-7 as like single directional cards, but they really played like them here. And part of that's because of the cards that specifically were in 5 and 8 were hard cards for them to play off. But it's hard to find cards other than kind of 6-7-6-3 stuff in the 4-7-3-7 that Yevon showed that are really going to be able to do stuff. One other thing I had a video about that's going to have gone up by the time I do this is kind of thinking about what's your worst card. And Yevon was very effective here in using 5-6-5-6 and 6-3-6-5 first and keeping his best cards for the endgame. And with Vid's hand, I think one thing that makes it harder to play is it was unclear what that was. So he starts with 5-6-5-6 and 5, but then after Yevon's move, all four of Vid's cards are kind of tied, right? They're all in this I can do one thing that nothing else in the hand can do, but I can only do the one thing, so I'm not actually all that useful. And it's much better to have, say, compared to maybe Yevon's hand here, let's just use the one in front of us, these cards that are really, really strong, the 6-7-6s and the 4-7-3-7, and then a card like a 6-3-6-5 that's basically trash, and you know which one to use, and your other cards will have multi-purpose use. I've talked about this a bit on kind of multi-level rule sets, specifically the ones I was inventing at the start of the return, of kind of total level equals some number, right? Say total level equals 22, level 3 through 6. And you have a choice between, you could say go 2 level 6s or 3 level 6s. You can't do 3 level 6s, but 2 level 6s, I can do math. 2 level 6s. What did I say the total was? 22? So 6-6-4-3-3, right? That's one option. But you could also go 5-5-4-4-4, right? We could go for balanced or the more extreme. And I think the advantage tended to go to the more extreme. Now, maybe in that specific example it doesn't work because level 5s hold up really well against level 6s. But having games where I want to use these cards early and these cards will be really dominant later is, I think, easier to play and more powerful than hands that are all in between level cards. Maybe that's the big takeaway of this game is Yevon's hand ended up just being much easier to play. Also really like his move in 8. It really left Vid's hand uncomfortable. I'm not sure what he should have done there. We could quickly bring that up and see what was the way to, presuming there was a way, but how could that have been potentially saved? But I think that was a really difficult position, really hard position to hold. So what were the hands? 5-6-5-6, 3-5-7-6, 5-4-5-7, 5-7-5-4, 7-6-3-5. That was our first turn hand. In my program always has to be the red hand. And then the second hand was 5-6-5-6, 6-3-6-5, 6-7-6-3, 4-7-3-7, and 6-3-6-7. And the rule set was same plus combo. Right. Fascinating to listen to, of course, as I do this. Okay. Play game. And let's flip over to the solver. And we have this position. Looked very difficult. And you know why it's so difficult? Because there is one tie. Oh my god, this is even worse than I thought. But maybe we sort of got to how you would find the one tie. Maybe we sort of got there. What is the worst card in Vid's hand? Go check out my 2 questions video, but I actually think this is a really nice application of it that I wish I had done before we looked at the solver, because I think we can get there, right? I think this is the kind of question that no matter how strong we are, we can answer. What's the worst card in Vid's hand? Well, 3-5-7-6 controls 7 and 9. That's really immediately useful. The 5-7-5s attack from 7 and 9. That's immediately useful. The 7-6-3-5 is not currently doing anything on board. Yes, it has important going up powers, but I think we should be able to agree, is our worst card here. How can we use the 7-6-3-5 and do something useful? My first instinct, and if I was playing Vid's position, I think I would have spent some time on this, is just trying to get 3 or 9 to work. but they're so clunky, right? Like 76359, say they go 63676. It's just it's hard for us. Like we can take that, but we have so limited power to take these sixes up and down. And I think those positions look really tough, right? Can we use it in one, two, or three? Well, the only one that kind of sets anything up and does anything for us is 76351, and that is the only tie. And I think like that's the only one that sets us up with plus potential, right? If it goes in two or three, it doesn't give us. I guess three it gives us the same in six. Um, so I guess there is a case for three as well. But I think one looks fairly logical from the front of what's our worst card, and that is the only tie in this position. But I think this is just tremendously hard to save, and it's really hard to differentiate that from five four set five sevens in one or three, or that same move in three, right? That sets up the same in six, so clearly does set something up as well. Yeah, I think this is just a really really difficult position to play, and well, this move was strange. It was not a ridiculous idea, not a ridiculous idea at all. And actually, there's a tie here. I just assumed there wasn't. All right. Rather than pretend I'm figuring it out when I've seen what the solution is, let's just say what the solution is. You can actually just take here, which I sort of just didn't check because this looked horrible. But if we stop for a second here, we think, we can see there are two sevens to the right. Ah, we win here. Oh, that's sneaky. So actually this position does hold. Which means, given that Vid's position was effectively lost, his move in four actually fantastic. His move in four actually fantastic. Because against Yevon playing the most normal, logical, reasonable reaction, not only did he have a save, but it had some sneaky power to it. Now, sure, okay, I assume you're not beating this move, right? We have to find this to tie here. But this does tie. Oh, very interesting. Really nice defensive resource, this move in 9. I did not, I just, this just looked so horrible to me. But I didn't calculate it out. And you should calculate out those lines. Like when I was saying I would be considering this is because, like the reason I think this is worth calculating is because it's forcing. You're in a really tough position, but if you play like here, there's say a bunch of different moves they might play. I think they should probably go 9, but there's like so many options in this position you're not going to be able to check stuff. If you go here, they probably should just capture you, right? And in fact, this turns out to be losing, but if you can find some move here, then you have the chance to save the position. And so similarly in this position, this move looks terrible, but there is an obvious response. And if we can refute that obvious response, or if we can hold off that obvious response, we might be on the path to a tie. I missed this defensive idea, so I certainly don't blame Vid for missing it. Very difficult game to play. I think the move in 8, unless there was a forced win against the starter, I think the move in 8 was great. Probably the best move in the position. And just really made Vid's hand impossible to play. But I actually think the move in 4 was creative and really good as well. I think this was a really good try to hold the position. Obviously, we know the best move, but it's just so hard. Sometimes you like look at a move like this, and I would say this would be a fantastic move to play, and you're like, but that's like a normal move to play. The reason a move like this is special is because there are like 5 or 6 normal moves you could play. And it is so hard to differentiate between them that someone who can consistently find the right move is so far ahead of someone who finds it, 1/3 of the time, even if you find it like above, you've correctly identified 5 moves, but your, random chance between them are 6 moves. So I think like when there are a bunch of normal looking moves, and none of them lead to specific lines you can calculate. If there's specific lines, then you can be like, ah, this loses to that, this loses to that, this doesn't lose to that. That's the move. But in a position like this, you instead have a situation where there's a lot of vague looking moves, and all of them look equally or very similarly unpromising. And being able to correctly pick out the one that actually does hold is really, really difficult. And I think it's one of the most difficult things. Because, like, you look at positions where there's one save, but that one save is very specific. It's like this specific concept. You have to set up this exact combo square or something like that. You can find that because there's nothing else to look for. And this, there's so many possible options that I think this is, even if the move itself isn't spectacular at all, I think this is one of the hardest kinds of moves to find. And so I think actually Vid played a really good try. Not there, here. Yevon goes here. It's still just really hard to find the save. And Vid doesn't end up finding the save. But actually, the more I look at this game, the more I think it's just a great game. Really interesting game. Interesting on the hand front, because we can see Vid just was in enormous trouble on a hand basis, right? 5-6, 5-6, and 5 should be a plausible starter. And instead it was effectively a losing one. Yeah. And then Vid found a really creative defensive idea, but this didn't quite work, so had to try to look for other things, and didn't see the key line you need to see to get this to work. And you need to see multiple things, because you do need to see that you don't lose here. There's just so much that looks really bad for you here. And it just looks really bad, right? Like, you need to see this doesn't beat you. And that requires a different save, right? Against this move, we needed to find this, but against this move, we need to find this to hold. Like, yeah. So, really hard saves to find. I really like the move in 4. I love this move in 8. Great game of Triple Triad there. Well done to Yevon.